Remember when logging into an MMORPG felt like stepping into another world? When guild drama, late night raids, and random dungeon groups were some of the best memories we had online? Today, I want to take a look back at what many call the Golden Age of MMORPGs. Why it was so special, the games that defined it, and what's changed since then. If you grew up in this era, you'll feel the nostalgia, and if you missed it, maybe you'll understand why so many gamers wish they could go back.
Alright, thumbs up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Dragons!
The concept of a golden age in massively multiplayer online role-playing games refers to a period of exceptional growth, innovation, and cultural impact within the genre. This era is widely identified as spanning approximately between 2000 to the 2010s. The MMORPG genre originated from early text-based multiplayer games, dating back to the 1970s and 1980s, and evolved into more sophisticated forms by the late 1990s. Early prototypes, such as MUD 1 in 1978, laid the groundwork for persistent online worlds. But it was the 1990s that introduced graphical elements, with titles like Meridian 59 in 1996 and Ultima Online in 1997, marking significant milestones. These games established core mechanics, including character progression, social interaction, and shared environments, which became foundational for later developments. By the early 2000s, MMORPGs began to transition from niche hobbies to mainstream entertainment, driven by improvements in the internet infrastructure and computing power. EverQuest, released in 1999, exemplified this shift by attracting hundreds of thousands of players through its emphasis on exploration, combat, and community. The genre's growth accelerated with the launch of World of Warcraft in 2004, which peaked at over 12 million subscribers by 2010, transforming MMORPGs into a global phenomenon. This period also saw the rise of other influential titles such as RuneScape in 2001 and Final Fantasy XI in 2002, which introduced free-to-play models and cross-platform accessibility, further expanding their player base. So, now that we've set the stage and placed ourselves back in that era, the late nights, the dial-up tones, and the thrill of stepping into a world bigger than anything we'd ever seen, the real question is, what games actually defined this golden era? Because while this era itself was magical, it was the games, the EverQuest, the RuneScapes, the World of Warcrafts, that gave us the adventures we still talk about today. Let's dive into the titles that shaped the MMORPG landscape.
Malik and Avon Traval, Order of the Dragon, Rod Set Knife, Necromancer, and Druid. Little shout out to Raxum, the House of Malice, and DJ Merrick on the 1 and the 2. Check it. Fuck you, Stink!
EverQuest, released in March 1999, stands as a foundational milestone in the evolution of MMORPGs, particularly due to its pioneering features and the development of a dedicated hardcore community. EverQuest revolutionized the MMORPG genre by introducing a fully realized 3D persistent world, setting it apart from earlier titles like Ultima Online and Meridian 59. The game featured expansive zones such as the common lands and dungeons like Black Burrow, where players could engage in real-time combat and cooperative gameplay, requiring groups of up to 54 players for raids against bosses like Lord Nagafen. This design emphasized player-driven economies through systems like the Bazaar for trading, as well as punishing mechanics such as corpse runs and experience loss upon death, which fostered strategic caution and social reliance. These elements not only popularized concepts like guilds and raids, but also influenced subsequent games. The influence of EverQuest's pioneering design extended beyond mechanics, shaping player expectations for depth and immersion in MMOs. By prioritizing group dynamics and exploration, it created a blueprint for social gameplay that persists today. Though, modern titles often streamline these elements for broader appeal. This legacy underscores the game's role in transforming online gaming into a communal experience, but it also reveals reliability issues, as early networking problems like those in 1999 demonstrated the fragility of large-scale systems at the time. RuneScape, developed by Jagex and initially launched in 2001, represents a significant milestone in the evolution of browser-based massive multiplayer online role-playing games. Its pioneering use of browser technology, starting with Java applets, allowed for accessible, low-barrier gameplay that influenced subsequent online gaming developments. RuneScape pioneered browser-based MMORPGs by offering a full fantasy world accessible without downloads, predating major titles like World of Warcraft in 2004. Its use of Java applets facilitated real-time multiplayer experiences with low system requirements, appealing to casual users and those in resource-limited environments. Compared to contemporaries like EverQuest, RuneScape's model reduced barriers by eliminating the need for high-end hardware and installations, focusing instead on a player-driven economy and skill-based progression. This innovation influenced modern browser games, emphasizing accessibility and scalability. RuneScape's design, with its emphasis on cross-platform compatibility, set precedents for inclusive gaming. WoW, launched in 2004, played a transformative role in the evolution of MMORPGs, particularly during what is often termed the Golden Age of MMORPGs. This period was characterized by a surge in game releases, innovative mechanics, and widespread accessibility, with WoW emerging as a dominant force that standardized many genre elements while attracting millions of players worldwide. WoW's influence extended beyond mere popularity, reshaping player expectations, game design, and cultural perceptions of MMORPGs through its accessible gameplay, expansive world building, and community-driven features. However, this dominance also contributed to market saturation and the homogenization of MMORPG design, as subsequent titles often emulated WoW's formula, leading to both innovation and eventual genre fatigue. WoW introduced several technical innovations that redefined MMORPG mechanics, such as faster-paced combat and instance dungeons, which improved accessibility without sacrificing depth. Unlike earlier games like EverQuest, which featured punishing grinds and harsh death penalties, WoW streamlined progression with features like auto-attacks, talent trees, and dynamic quests, allowing players to engage more fluidly and reducing downtime between encounters. These changes made the game more welcoming to casual players. However, this shift also influenced later MMORPGs, with titles like Final Fantasy XIV adopting similar structure, though critics argue it led to formulaic designs that prioritize quantity over innovation. And speaking of Final Fantasy XIV, Final Fantasy XI entered the MMORPG landscape at a transformative time, with its initial announcement in 2000 marking a shift toward cross-platform play and persistent worlds. Launched on May 16, 2002 for the PlayStation 2 in Japan, it expanded to Windows in November 2002 and North America in October 2003, becoming one of the first games to integrate players across continents and platforms. This cross-platform approach, including later support for Xbox 360 in 2006, contributed to its longevity, as it allowed for a broader player base during a period when MMORPGs were rapidly growing. The game's expansions, such as Rise of the Zilart and Chains of Promathia, introduced layered storytelling and endgame content that defined the era's focus on depth over accessibility, influencing how players engaged with virtual worlds. By contrast, contemporaries like EverQuest emphasized similar group-based mechanic but lacked Final Fantasy XI's narrative cohesion, while World of Warcraft later streamlined these elements for mass appeal. The era's MMORPG boom from 2000 to 2010 saw Final Fantasy XI as a benchmark for complexity, with its job system and party mechanics requiring strategic depth that fostered community bonds. However, this design also contributed to accessibility issues, as the game's steep learning curve and dependency on grouping alienated casual players, a factor that later MMORPGs like WoW addressed. Final Fantasy XI gameplay innovations, particularly in the job system and party dynamics, played a significant role in defining the Golden Age by emphasizing independence and strategic depth. The system, introduced in 2002, allowed players to switch roles like Warrior, Black Mage, and Thief, each with unique abilities that require group coordination for optimal performance, a mechanic that influenced later titles like Final Fantasy XIV. For instance, sub-job mechanics enabled hybrid builds, such as Thief with Ninja for enhanced evasion, fostering experimentation and replayability. Party systems in Final Fantasy XI required players to manage aggro and resources collectively, with roles like tanks and healers essential for survival, a design that promoted social interaction and long-term engagement. Final Fantasy XI played a foundational role in defining the Golden Age of MMORPGs by pioneering complex systems for grouping and storytelling that influenced titles like World of Warcraft and EverQuest. Its emphasis on strategic depth and player interdependence created immersive experiences that prioritized community. The period from 2000 to 2010 is often hailed as the Golden Age due to numerous factors that maximized player engagement and industry growth. One primary driver was a subscription-based model, which proved highly successful for titles like WoW, generating billions in revenue through consistent monthly fees. This model incentivized developers to produce high-quality, ongoing content, as players expected regular updates to justify their payments. For example, WoW expansions such as the Burning Crusade in 2007 introduced new regions and mechanics that sustained interest and encouraged long-term subscriptions. Innovation in gameplay mechanics also defined this era. Games like Lord of the Rings Online leveraged rich narratives and player choices to create immersive experiences, blending lore with interactive elements. Social features such as guild systems and large-scale raids fostered community building, with players forming alliances and engaging in cooperative content that emphasized teamwork. This social aspect was amplified by the era's technological advances, including improved networking that reduced latency and enabled seamless interactions. Player trends during this time reflected widespread enthusiasm, with subscription numbers peaking at around 12 million for WoW and active communities forming around titles like RuneScape, which reported over 100,000 concurrent players. The diversity of offerings from sandbox-style games like EVE Online to structured narratives like Final Fantasy XI catered to varied experiences, contributing to the genre's cultural peak. However, this success was not without challenges, as the reliance on subscriptions sometimes led to perceptions of greed, with players debating the value of ongoing fees. The Golden Age of MMORPGs from the 2000s established foundational elements that continued to influence the genre, from persistent worlds in Ultima Online to scalable servers in World of Warcraft, with cultural impacts. Looking back, it's clear the Golden Age of MMORPGs wasn't just about the mechanics or the graphics. It was about the people, the communities, and the sense of discovery that kept us logging in night after night. And while the genre has changed, the memories from that era remain timeless. Which brings us to today. What does that legacy mean for us now? And what might the future of MMORPGs hold? What game defines the golden age of MMORPGs for you? Drop in the comments, I'd love to hear your stories. And hey, when one golden age is over, another one begins.
Outlanders, your journey ends here.